Hey guys, and welcome back to DarkLogic Studios' Attack on Titan theories and discussions. Before we go any further, I want to give you fair warning that these videos are going to contain lots and lots of spoilers. So if you're not caught up with the manga, then what are you doing with your life? Seriously though, if you don't want spoilers, you should probably click on something else. If you're all caught up though, then let's get to it. Hey guys, and welcome to the continuation of our discussion about Attack on Titan Chapter 97. So far this month, we've talked about Eren's letter, Armin's nose, yes you heard that right, but now it's time to move on to a much bigger topic, and that is the Helos statue that Captain Magath and William Tybur were talking about in this chapter. There's potentially a lot of clues hidden in this one scene. So what is the meaning of this statue, and what does it represent, both to the Marley and in the story? In order to answer this, let's go ahead and go through the dialogue in this scene. But this time, we'll be going over the official translation to try and decipher what information we can gather from it. So we start out with William telling Magath that the warrior unit of the Marleyan army was doing much better ever since he took over management of it, then asks him if he has deciphered who among his family is the Warhammer Titan. Magath replies by saying he doesn't know, nor does he know if they are present there with the rest of their family, which I kinda get the feeling he's lying about that, but we'll see. William then tells him that only a select few have been told the identity of the Warhammer Titan. Magath replies by saying, I imagine the leader here at headquarters would be one of those select few, but he was forced to leave on short notice this morning on orders from his superior. I find it very peculiar, and that's why now I'm talking to you in his place. Is this and your son a rival with your entire family, completely unrelated? Now let's pause here for a moment and take a closer look at everything Magath said here. Because for one, I'd previously thought that the leader of headquarters they were referring to might be Zeke. Because it wasn't specific about what headquarters this exactly was or what rank this leader might be, I thought that he might be referring to the leader among the Marleyan warriors themselves rather than a Marleyan officer, and of course that would have to be Zeke. However, one tiny change in the official translation changes all of that. In the previous translation, Magath seemed to say, "That's why I'm talking to you in this place." But in the official translation he says, "That's why I'm talking to you in his place." This brings the entire conversation into a whole different context. What this means is that Magath wouldn't usually be the person someone like William Tybur would be talking to in this situation, and because Magath himself expresses that he is speaking with William in place of someone else, it must mean that the leader of headquarters is ranked above Captain Magath, not below him, making the leader of headquarters and his superior high-ranking Marleyan officials. Who they are, we don't know, and I still think it could be referring to Zeke in some way, but this small detail suggests that that's not the case. So what does all of this mean? Well, first let's try to discern exactly where we are and who we're talking about. When Magath is referring to the headquarters they're at, I imagine he must be talking about the warrior unit headquarters. This is the building where all the warriors probably live, train, and take orders, and also where all the Marleyan officials who are involved with their operation work. Furthermore, it's most likely part of a larger military complex. Magath is captain of the warrior unit, but not the leader. The leader, who is Magath's boss, had to leave under orders of his boss, and now Magath is left to meet with the Tyburs instead of the leader of headquarters, who would usually be, of course, the one to respond to this sort of visit from such powerful and important guests. With all of that in mind, I'm going to have to revise my previous assumption and say that whoever the leader of headquarters is probably not Zeke, and likely not in on whatever the Tybur family have planned. Not only that, but the Tybur family don't want them anywhere near this meeting. In fact, I think it's safe to say that it was likely the Tybur family themselves who arranged for the leader of headquarters to be called away that day. So whoever that person is, William Tybur didn't want them around getting in the way of whatever he's doing there. So what the heck is going on here? Well, for those of you who aren't already aware, we've been talking about a theory on this channel about the possibility that some of our characters are going to rise up and fight against the Marley. We already know that the Survey Corps want to, but we've also been getting a lot of hints from many of these Eldian Marleyan characters that they might get on board as well. Zeke is a big one. We've had a lot of clues pointing to the possibility that Zeke might totally betray the Marley before he dies. possibly even sacrifice himself to save his little brother in a final act of redemption. We've also been getting lots of evidence that Reiner might not stay loyal either, because of how conflicted he is. Even Falco, despite being a kid, feels like a character that might head down this path as well. Captain Magath, in my opinion, could also be one of these characters. Of all the actual Marleyans we've seen, Magath is the only one that's really even been remotely relatable. Although to be fair, he's the only one we've really gotten a chance to get to know. What's interesting about Magath is that he's been with these warriors ever since they were kids, and unlike most Marleyans, it seems like he genuinely cares about them despite the fact that they're Eldians. Furthermore, as we move on into the conversation, he even seems to sound bitter at Marley for the choices they've made in the past. After this is when William starts to talk about the Helos statue. He describes the statue as a gallant figure of a mere human who was able to defeat the devil of all land. A true Marleyan hero who saved the world, an incredible feat. Brave, beautiful, completely unwounded. Truly the Marleyan soul personified. To which Magath replies, yes, indeed. Not to mention that the statue is hollow. As I discussed in my review of Chapter 97, I believe that what he means when he says that is that the statue, much like the rest of Marleyan history, is a lie. But we'll talk more about that in a moment. Because in this scene we also get another hint, as I mentioned, about how Magath feels about the Marley and their wars. William comments that he's heard Magath wants to reinstate the Marleyan conscription system, to which Magath replies, war to Marleyans is something that exists only in the pages of their newspapers. It's something nice and easy to them. They read a few words and the next thing they know their borders have expanded. And it's even better when I know the only ones being showered by bullets are tamed descendants of the devil. I'm sure that forcing some Marleyans to hear what it sounds like to have your ear grazed by a bullet won't be enough to stop Marley's self-destructive march towards war. So what Magath is saying is that despite the fact that Marley is constantly at war, the common Marleyan is completely protected and unaffected by it. Because they have a large population of Eldians and Titan shifters to fight their wars for them, no actual Marleyans, except for the officers that command the Eldian soldiers, ever have to go to war. Because of that, they have no reason to protest the war effort or even really care. In fact, from what it sounds like, many citizens might be in favor of the war efforts, a hallmark of effective propaganda. Even though they're already the most powerful nation in the world, and they're headed on a path that will inevitably end to their eventual destruction, they are still hungry for land, power, and war. Next, Magath makes a comment, letting William know that he suspects someone else is controlling Marley behind the scenes. William confirms his suspicion, telling him that the nation of Marley is indeed under the authority of the Tiber family. He tells Magath, but Marley has always taken the path of militarism by none other than Marley itself. We gave Marley freedom and power as an act of atonement. Our predecessors, that is. Captain Magath replies by saying, you say that as if you saw it all happening. William says, I did see it, along with the Warhammer Titan we have received and passed down memories. That is the role of the Tiber family. We saw and did nothing more, as Eldians were forced into cages, as Marley did as they saw fit with them, and so, both Eldian and Marley were tossed into darkness. That responsibility lies with the Tiber family. The times have passed the power of the Titans by. There are now disquieting movements coming from Paradis. We plan to reveal all to the world during the upcoming festival. That's where I will entrust all my hopes. I wasn't lying when I said I came here to see the Helos statue. Marley needs a hero once more. Theo Magath, would you do me the honor of shaking this hand? So from what I can tell, it feels to me like William is not happy with the choices the Tiber family has made in the past either. Based on what he said and his facial expressions, it appears to me that he might feel a lot of regret on behalf of what the Tiber family has allowed to happen. Whatever the case, it seems clear that he's not happy with this state of affairs. So we've essentially got two characters coming together who are not happy with how their respective powers that be have handled history, giving them motivation to change the future. That's important. Another thing that we can gather from this sequence of dialogue is that it seems to confirm that William is in fact the Warhammer Titan. It's a little confusing since he switches from I to we when referring to the memories, but I believe that when he says we, he's likely referring to all the people who have passed down the Warhammer Titan through the years, of whom he likely possesses all of their memories. And let's not forget that it has been referenced that people quote-unquote live on inside their successors when the Titan power is transferred. So he could very well be speaking for all of them, but he does say, "I did see it." So I think it's safe to say that William himself must be the Warhammer Titan. Also, he looks like Thor. One other thing to note is his reference to Paradis. He tells Magath that there's disquieting movements coming from the island. Unless he's talking about information that's already publicly available, then it seems to suggest that he has a connection to someone on Paradis. How else would he know? Obviously there are no Marleyans out there scouting the island because all their battleships freaking disappeared, so how could he be in contact with someone from Paradis Island at all? Well, it's hard to say at this point. Scenario, though, is that the Tiber family's plan is already underway, and they have somehow previously made contact with someone on Paradis Island over the past 4 years. Remember, 4 years have gone by, and we don't know what all has happened in this time. Coupled with our theory about Aaron's letter in the previous video, it would all make perfect sense. In fact, I had previously theorized that the Survey Corps had commandeered those 32 ships, rather than destroying them, and used them to reach the Marleyan mainland. But it's also a possibility that someone on those ships were sent there for the specific purpose of contacting the people on Paradis Island on behalf of the Tiber family, and possibly Zeke as well. This seems even more likely when you consider that, when prompted for a theory on what happened to those ships, Zeke's response is that they were likely destroyed. But that could just be what Zeke wants them to believe. If Zeke is in cahoots with the Tiber family, and the ships were a part of their plan, he would want the Marley to believe that they were not going to be used against them in some way later, nor were worth trying to recover. So why is William meeting with Captain Magath in the first place? What exactly is the purpose of this conversation? When he asks Magath to shake his hand, I feel like he's not just ending the conversation, but is actually asking for Magath's cooperation. Though he hasn't revealed what exactly he's going to do yet, it seems like whatever happens, in order for things to go smoothly, he's going to need Magath's help, or at least for him to turn a blind eye. Considering Magath is in charge of the warrior unit, the most powerful military unit in Marley, this makes perfect sense. Additionally, Magath and William, in a sense, both share the same sentiment, but are disgusted by the Marley and the Tiber family's predecessors, and see that something must be done before the Marley and the aliens completely destroy each other and themselves. This commonality gives Magath plenty of motivation to get on board with whatever is about to happen. So let's move on to the Helos statue itself. Who was Helos? Who was this devil of the land? And what does the statue represent? Is the legend of Helos true or just another myth? A piece of Marleyan propaganda, much like the story of Ymir and the devil. Again, I'll explain quickly for those of you who might be new to this channel. There are people out there who still think that the devil actually exists in the world of Attack on Titan, but I was never convinced of that. I feel like these stories about the devil and Ymir and the 1700-year genocide are either completely false or highly exaggerated, and used as tools of propaganda to further Marley's agenda and fuel the Marleyan militaristic culture. And I believe that the Helos statue is no different. Most legends and myths are based on a hint of truth. So like Ymir, there's a possibility that someone named Helos actually existed at some point, but it's highly unlikely that he's everything William Tiber describes him to be. When William talks about Helos, he talks about him as being about as perfect a human as you can get. Brave, handsome, apparently never got hurt even while killing titans. Now that doesn't sound very realistic, does it? Even in the fictional world of Attack on Titan. But there are a couple people we know who sound awfully close to that description, and those of course are Levi and Mikasa Ackerman. Neither one of them are as invincible as Helos apparently used to be. They're close, but they are both brave, good at killing titans, and also very pretty. There's also this interesting visual parallel between the statue and how Levi had Zeke cornered during the Return to Shiganshina arc, which, like the dialogue about Eren sending the letter to his family, I don't feel like is an accident. It feels like a deliberate clue, although like everything in this manga, we have to keep in mind that it might be another misdirection. So, could Helos be connected to anyone else important? And who is the Titan that Helos defeated? When I first read the chapter, my initial thoughts were that Helos may have been a member of the Tiber family, and the Devil of the Land was the Warhammer Titan. It did say a few chapters back that the Tiber family have had the Warhammer Titan for about 100 years. and Helos apparently defeated this titan 100 years ago as well. So what if the devil of the land that they are referring to is actually the Warhammer Titan? And what if Helos, a Tiber, stole this titan from the first king, and this is the event that sparked the Marleyan uprising that brought them into power, making the Tibers directly responsible for the fall of the Eldian Empire, as they knew it. However, if the Tibers retained control over the Marley after all this, then I guess we can't really say that the power was ever actually transferred to Marley. They've technically still been ruled by Eldians all this time, meaning it was the Tiber family who actually overthrew the first king, or the 145th king depending on what side of the wall you're on, not the Marley. So why? Why would this happen? Why would the Tiber family want to overthrow the 145th king? And more importantly, why on earth would they give Marley so much power? Even go so far as to hide the fact that the Eldians were still in control. It sounds like back in the day there was a lot of Eldian infighting. In fact, we're pretty much told that in chapter 86. It says that the 8 Titan clans, each in possession of a Titan shifter, were all constantly at war with each other. And it suggests that the 145th king left because he just didn't want to deal with all their bullshit anymore. But what if the 145th king didn't want to leave at all? What if he was forced to leave because all of this fighting eventually ended up with him losing power to another Titan clan, namely the Tiber family? What I find interesting as well is that there are only 8 Titan clans, not 9. Why only 8? Doesn't the founding Titan have a clan? You'd think that he would have a clan. So here's a theory. I do think that Helos was actually an Ackerman, but I think he was fighting on behalf of the Tiber family, and I don't think he took the power for himself, instead allowed a member of the Tiber family to inherit it after he defeated the Titan without killing it completely. I think it's a possibility that the Tiber family and or the Marleyans at the time created the Ackerman clan either by experimenting on Titans or during the initial creation of Titans themselves. We've gotten hints that the Ackermans and their special abilities were created out of some form of Titan science and are described as a byproduct of the Titan science. It's pretty vague and not entirely clear what that means, but it does suggest that the creation of the Ackermans was done completely by accident. Upon this new discovery, the Tiber/Marleyan alliance used one of these new creations, one of these Ackermans, to take down the Warhammer Titan and eventually overthrow the 145th king. Now this begs the question, why aren't there any Ackermans left in Marley? And how did they end up on Paradis? But I think that'll have to be a discussion for another time. More importantly, if Helos was fighting on behalf of the Tiber family, I think it's a possibility that the Tiber family originally possessed a different Titan shifter, a weaker one. I think to even get this far, they would have had to been one of the original 8 Titan clans. I think the Tiber family and the Marley may have teamed up to steal the Warhammer Titan from its original clan by using the Ackermans, these people that they had created, who happen to be really good at fighting Titans. Then subsequently, with the power of what's arguably probably the 2nd or 3rd strongest Titan in existence, stole more Titan shifters, effectively stripping power from and dismantling every other Titan clan, except for the Attack Titan clan. What I also find interesting is that even though the first king took a position of non-interference, he also ironically ended up with the one Titan who just wants to fight all the time. It's literally called the Attack Titan, or the Advancing Titan, depending on the translation. The complete opposite of the first king's ideology, who basically just wanted to freeze his people in time and not let them do anything, especially not fight. So with nothing but the founding Titan and one clan left by his side, the 145th king booked it the fuck out of there as fast as he could, inevitably having to leave some people behind, and erected the walls on Paradis Island as a last resort defense against the Marleyans and the Tiber family, whose goal may have always been to acquire every single Titan in order to become the ultimate superpower. On the other side of things, I think the reason the Tiber family decided to hide their rule behind the guise of a Marleyan empire is simple. The fact of the matter is, nobody really likes Eldians. It was likely that by the time this uprising took place, the world, no matter how long the Eldians were in power, got fed up with living in fear of the Titans and dealing with their constant clan wars. Not to mention all the genocide and shit that they apparently did. The world wanted the Eldians out of power. So instead of overthrowing the king and replacing him with another Eldian ruler, I think the Tiber family may have took advantage of this sense of dissent among the world and created a ruse to overthrow them and put another nation in place as the reigning superpower of the world, while still retaining control behind the scenes. So instead of overthrowing the king and replacing him with another Eldian ruler, they made it look like the Marley had actually overthrown him. The Tiber's ancestors gave the Marley power as an act of atonement, as Williams says, and ruled from the background while allowing the Marley to do whatever the hell they wanted. And by ruling their kingdom from the shadows, the Marleyans' role as the most powerful nation on Earth was more accepted by the world population, and they didn't have to risk yet another uprising from people who simply didn't want to be ruled by Eldians any longer. But those are just my thoughts. Whatever the case may be, we do know one thing. Apparently, everything's going to be revealed at the upcoming festival. So what's going to happen at that festival? And who's going to die? I've got a bad feeling our characters are not just going to be talking at this festival. But we'll talk about that next week, when we continue our discussion about Attack on Titan Chapter 97. Something major is going to go down at this festival, and I'm really interested to hear what you guys think is going to happen. So give this video a like if you enjoyed it, share, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Helos was an Ackerman? Do you think he was a Tiber? Who do you think the Titan he defeated was? Do you think any of this is true at all? And what the hell does all this mean? And tell me what you think is going to happen at this festival. Make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos, and check out my Patreon if you want to help support this channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.